Hello. Today is Wednesday, January 23rd, 2019, and I got some really bad news today. I learned that my friend and mentor, Denny Haney, passed away. And I wanted to come home and do something special. I wanted to do a special feature. I had planned to reach out to Denny and ask him to be an interview here on this channel, and I know he would have done it. I wanted to get some things recorded about Denny and about what Denny does because I wanted it to be shared. Now there are a few YouTube interviews, there are a few things that are available, and I'm going to try to make those links available below. But I wanted to get home and talk about Denny. This here is Denny Haney. I'm going to post some pictures as well, and it's circulating on Facebook. The word just got out today that he has passed. If you are a magician in Baltimore, if you have any heritage in the performing arts at all in Baltimore, you probably knew Denny. Denny was a great performer. He worked primarily for corporations. He did a lot of other things as well. I know Janice and I, my wife and I, went up to see him when he was in Atlantic City. And he invited us up. He was willing to put us up. He bought us breakfast. He did a lot for us. We went up to see him, and he was performing at one of the casinos up there, and we enjoyed it immensely. I remember when I was wanting so desperately to be full-time, and I was really just beginning. I was in my early 20s, and I was married. We were just home from Springfield, Missouri. My wife and I had gone out there to study for the ministry, and the ministry didn't work out. And there were a lot of factors that came into play there, and that's another story. But I went back to my love, which is my passion, which is magic, and I started to perform, and I really wanted to go full time. And my wife and I got together with Denny one night at his home. He invited us over to talk about it. And basically what he told me that night was, don't quit your day job. And so I didn't, and I'm kind of sorry at this point that I didn't switch gears. But you know what Denny was telling me is, so often he gives me advice, and I don't understand it. I don't understand what he's telling me. It takes years before I understand what he was trying to tell me. He wasn't telling me to quit. He wasn't telling me not to do it. He was telling me to build a career before I let go of the steady income that I had. Now, when Denny started, he'll tell you that his first month as a full-time performer, he made $50, and he had children to support. But there was wisdom in what he was telling me, and he was speaking from a place of experience. Here is a guy who had a full-time career as a performer, and then later in life he became a dealer. And I watched this transition. I remember I came to know Denny in the early 80s, and he was performing at that time. He had a full-time performing career, and I was desperate to make it happen. And I said, Denny, I'll be on staff. I'll book for you. And so I did a lot of things for him. But I remember he started to sell things out of his house. He had props, like all magicians. You acquire a lot of things, and so he was selling things, and this kind of aside ended up being his career. Once he gradually stopped performing and started to work full-time with the shop, the Denny and Lee Magic Emporium. It changed locations. Once that I know of, it was in Essex. That will continue to be in Essex, but in later years it was on Golden Ring Road. And it was a small little warehouse back there. He had much more space. The theater was much larger. He had sold me my first set of lights. They were his lights, then they became my lights. And then I gave those lights back to him when he was trying to set up lights for the theater back there, for lectures and for performances. And so I don't know if he still uses those or if he still did in later years, but for many, many years, those were the lights that powered the theater back there. This is Denny. This is Denny right here. Denny Haney. And it's a great image because he's leaning on books. And Denny was a book person. Just like Phil Thomas before him. Phil Thomas used to say, read books, my boy. Read books, my boy. And Denny was a book specialist. If there was an out-of-print book, he could probably get it for you. I remember our last conversation, which was only 2 weeks ago. I was asking him about a book on deck switches. Very rare book, it entirely on deck switches, and he said, I'm sorry I don't have that one. I ended up finding it, by the way. But if you needed an out-of-print book, then he was the go-to person for that. So I got word today that Denny's no longer with us, and I was so saddened. Saddened because I lost a great friend, saddened because I've lost a great mentor, saddened because Baltimore has lost a great person, and the magic community has lost a great person. The people that are passing from us are irreplaceable. Denny is irreplaceable. His wisdom is irreplaceable. I'd hoped to sit down with him on camera and get some of his wisdom on film. That didn't happen. It didn't happen. And you know what? It really drives home, and this is the point that I wanted to make. I wanted to do this today while this is fresh in my head. You don't have tomorrow. You don't have tomorrow. You have today. If you have a dream, you might be watching this channel because you love magic. You might be watching it because you're a magician, or because you're a mentalist, or because you're interested in hiring me, and I hope you are. But you don't have tomorrow. You know, I thought the reason I held off and I didn't do the interview right away was because I wanted a better camera. The camera I'm using is a Nikon, and it has a life of about 15 minutes. And I wanted to record Denny for maybe 90 minutes and then splice that up and put it out over sections. But I never got that camera, and I never set up that interview, and now it's not going to happen. So my point is, if there's something you want to do, if there's some place you want to be, if there's somebody you love that you haven't told them, if there's something you want to achieve, do it today. Do it today. At least get started. At least make an effort to do something, because you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring you. A friend of mine, a brand new friend, I believe we connected through YouTube, told me that Denny was ill. I reached out to Denny. I spoke to him on the phone. He was in the shop. He seemed fine to me, and I didn't see him in person, and I regret that. But he seemed okay, and now I get word today that he's no longer with us. Wanted to tell you a little bit about Denny and about my relationship with him. I think we met at Lou Walston's Funhouse Magic Shop. I believe that's where we met. And we became close friends, and Denny was an easy person to become friends with. And if he sensed that you loved magic, he would do anything for you. And I think he knew my passion. He knew my love. And he invited me to his home. This was long before he had the shop. He invited me to his home. We spent many, many evenings together at his home with his pig baby. I saw this pig in the act. He was fantastic. Then he would have a card selected, he'd have it shuffled into a bag, and the pig would run into the bag and find the card. It was an amazing thing to see. But the pig, like most performing animals, they're not just props, they're animals, they're friends. And the pig was a good friend of Denny's, and so he was always a fixture. He was always there, and in the early years of the shop, he was always at the shop. But we spent a lot of time together, and I remember one evening in particular, he knew that I loved Doug Henning. Doug Henning was a major influencer for me, a major inspiration, and Denny had recorded all of Doug Henning's specials. So we spent one evening watching every single special that Doug Henning made. And Denny even had a reel of special appearances that Doug Henning made. And so we did all of that, and it was a wonderful evening, sitting there and watching those shows and analyzing them and thinking about them and talking about how he did this and how he did that, and it was just fantastic. So that's one great memory. And Denny had a set of lecture notes, and the lecture notes really they didn't deal with routines, they didn't deal with magic, they dealt with the business side of magic, and how to prepare yourself for the best opportunities, and to be ready to be. And that's a key thing about performing arts, is that you don't necessarily know when the call is going to come or when the opportunity is going to be there. You have to be ready. You have to be able to say yes. And I just did that this past weekend. I had an opportunity. I said yes, and I was there and I did the show. And Denny taught me that. Denny taught me to be rehearsed, to be ready to go at a moment's notice, because you do what you need to do. You go out and you network and you sell and you make yourself available. But when the call comes and the show is Saturday or the show is tonight, you need to be able to pick up and go. And Denny really taught me that. Have your show ready to go, have it rehearsed, and so when the call comes, you're not going, oh God, I'm not ready, or I got to rehearse, or I got to practice this. You're ready to go. You need to be ready to go, and so I was. Denny's birthday was December 26th, and I remember years and years and years, when he had the shop, I would go down on December 26th. I'd spend the whole day, and he would be there, and we'd talk, and lots of guys would come together on that day, because everybody knew it was his birthday, and we wanted to celebrate it with him. But it's hard to capture on film right now what he created, both as a performer and then later as a dealer. He reminded me very much of David Bamberg, Fu Manchu. If you read David Bamberg's biography, what you see is the Bamberg heritage, which is a tremendous heritage. David Bamberg came from a long line of performers in his family, but he was a great entertainer, a great performer. And later in life, he settled down and he opened a magic shop, and he mentored young magicians and those who wanted to pursue the art. And that's what Denny did. He had a lifetime of achievement as a performer. And he was a wonderful performer. And then he decided that he was going to mentor us. Mentor the ones that wanted to do it. Mentor the ones that had a passion for it. And so he did. And like Phil Thomas before him, he emphasized reading. He emphasized reading the classics. He emphasized showmanship and the development of the qualities of showmanship and the books that could direct us there. He was always ready with a book recommendation, and I appreciated him for that. My library is full of books that he recommended, books that I read, and books that I understood once I read them why he was recommending them. So he opened the shop, the Denny Lee Magic Emporium, and it's still there right now. Hopefully it continues over in Essex, off of Golden Ring Road. So visit, call. The magic shops are having difficulty right now because of internet dealers. And everybody needs to succeed, and everybody needs opportunity. And God bless the internet dealers. I'm glad they're there. But there is something about a local magic shop, about a place to gather, a place to meet, and people would come in, nationally known, world-renowned entertainers would come in to Denny's shop. And if you happened to be there, it was an opportunity for you to meet them and interact with them. And Denny himself was an internationally known entertainer. So there was no better way to learn than rubbing shoulders with these guys and these performers. And he had, over the course of the average year, he would bring in many lecturers to lecture at the shop. And I remember I attended every lecture I could for many years and met lots and lots of entertainers and speakers and lecturers down there at the shop. And so it's it's going to be missed. Denny's going to be missed. So I wanted to do this this little tribute, and hopefully I'll come back and get my thoughts together and do something else, and maybe tell you some more anecdotes and stories about Denny. But I heard the news today. I was shocked. I was saddened. And I wanted to do something special. So, Denny Haney, you will be missed. You are irreplaceable. And many, many of us who love the arts owe you so much. So, Denny Haney, thank you. Thank you for a lifetime of giving. Thank you for a lifetime of performing. Thank you for a lifetime that was devoted not only to the art, but to the artists who make up that art. You gave us so much, and we owe you so much. Thank you.